to do on a freight train or everyday fight. Make a midnight kiss with fantasy to hide. Take a twist on every day, an emotional fright. No space, plan flight. We're leaving Earth tonight. If they won't let you ride, but can't let go, as high as you are, pretending more. Said I gotta send, live to make a living. The computer knows you. The computer knows you lie. Everyone abused, one way or another. Understanding blind spot, or just because the other. Time to run. No one is justified. No excuse for this. Here we are. You're the star, and it's time, even though yes, but it's a crime. You're the star, and it's time, even though yes, but it's a crime. It's over.
Oh, hello. God almighty. You better thank me for doing this live stream. I don't know if anybody's ever tried to do a live stream. I'm not going to bitch too much. I want to rip out of my skin. Hi, my name's Bill, and I am angry. Oh, I hate it. Okay. This is not the first impression that I really wanted to give. However, if you've seen any of my other content, you know that it is as candid as this. I've been trying for the last hour and a half to make this stream work. Announcements. I screwed up and hit OK on the new Mac OS installation. So if anybody knows about Mac OS, and if you have a Mac, even an iPhone, then you know enough said. I cannot believe how bad it is. I hate it. I always hate it. I take as long as possible to do an update because every time I'm like, why did you fuck up everything? Like, what was good is now not good. And they're like, oh, you can just, change the default back to the legacy era. Why? Like, why was it changed? Why wasn't that an option? Hey, when you click on your desktop now, all right, I'm done. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. Needless to say, it took a bazillion years, specifically an hour and a half, of dickery with OBS just to get this to work. Like, I'm almost hoarse. I've been yelling so much. And I was thinking, what is the What is the biological reason? What's the evolutionary reason for experiencing this amount of butt hurt over something that, into the ether? It's not like God hears it, right? Like, why is this useful? I don't know. I don't know if it's useful, but an amazing level of annoyance. And that's where we're going to start this episode of the DreadLore Corebook Read Through 1. I'm doing it again. I don't to be completely honest, I want to go to bed. Like, I'm so mad right now. I'm going to read this fucking core book with great prejudice, my own core book. And if this cord catches on something again, I might break this computer. It might happen. There may be a mishap. There may be an episode. Oh, are you not going to sign in? Okay, fine. Fuck it. If you're on Facebook, I am technically streaming to the Facebook. I can't see the comments because my fucking computer sucks. Okay? Sorry. Leave comments if you wish. I hate great stuff. You know what helps? The Patreon. Hey, Patreon members. Thank you so much for doing the thing. Nice segue, huh? Yeah, this is the wrong ones. Those are the wrong people. But whatever. Thank you to the Patreon. I was going to zoom out and do their thing. It's Nostalgic, Tim Roberts, and Daniel Holker. Thanks, guys. Sorry my Patreon thing is fucked up because OBS is fucked up too. Oh my God. Like I had this whole thought. I was like, okay, I'm going to jump on the live stream. It's going to be tight. Like boom, boom, boom. Hit it, quit it. Nope. And then an hour and a half of this, of just enraging myself. The video's choppy for no reason. There's no reason. My computer is just fucked. I got the lights set up. The book's here. Come on. You can't see the book because of the microphone. So, my buddy and co-host, Ken Howe, and I do the Geeky Gamer podcast. You can see because my stupid fucking mouse shows you. Geeky Gamer podcast right here. I'm going to show it to you big. This goes on Thursdays on YouTube, and it doesn't go on Instagram. That's wrong. It goes on Facebook. But whatever. Oops. Finding all the good out. Anyway, my buddy Ken Howe and I. So Ken is much better at technology. If you've checked out the Geeky Gamer podcast, GGP, or even our deal on Mondays, which is Theater of the Mind, where we play DreadLore. It's Mondays at 7 Eastern Standard. You'll note that, and that's on Twitch, you'll note that the graphics and such are far superior to this. This is like basic bitch OBS, which is what I can do. But Ken and I commiserate often about how literally nothing will change. Nothing. You'll have everything set up. Everything's great. You've tested it the day before, ad nauseum. Couple hours, 3 hours of testing. You hit go, doesn't work. The input does't work. The audio just doesn't work. And so you're searching around and you're 2 minutes in and now you're 12 minutes past the time you're supposed to start. And you're so angry by the time you hit the go button and it actually works that you need like 20 minutes to fucking calm down. I don't understand how podcasters like Joe Rogan or whatever, or there's a fucking million podcasters, how every time when it hits go, they're not just seething. I don't know. I don't get it. Like, they must be like, they get that out of the way and then go live. There's got to be some way of doing that, like with a stream deck or something. It'd be awesome to have a stream deck. At any rate, I need to upgrade my technology. This 2018 MacBook Pro is a fucking piece of shit. I hate it. The webcam sucks, although this camera's okay. That's because it's a Logi webcam that I got. And it actually has a far superior webcam than the stock MacBook fucking Pro webcam. I'm not going to bitch about it. This isn't that bitching of a... This is not a bitch fest of that. Okay, no one's on anyway, so maybe I can cut this portion out. Maybe that's what they do. They bitch and moan and then cut it out. Maybe that's what they do. The anger's real, y'all. All right. I shall talk. So this is basically on YouTube. That's what we're doing here. In the description is all the goodness of what we're doing on the channel. Basically rebranding this channel. Originally, it was kind of just a repository of all the DreadLore campaigns that we're doing. It still is that, but now it's more geared toward the live stream content of the Geeky Gamer podcast and then Theater of the Mind. So that's what we're going to do. And I figure since that's Mondays and Thursdays, maybe in between, I can do a DreadLore Corebook read through and actually describe the system that we're playing. Because unless you've gotten, the book or the digital version of the book, why would you ever know what DreadLore is? Other than me bitching and moaning online and all the social media about whatever it is that I find annoying. So we're going to do a little bit of that. I actually did one of these previously. I was going to redo them and start fresh, be succinct. I don't know why I tried to do that. It's not my jam, guys. It's not what I do. So hopefully this is entertaining. All right, this is the digital core book, which is what we're looking at right here. That's the cover of it. That is free right now on DriveThruRPG. You can also just go to DreadLore.com, and it has all of the links you need for everything. It's got everything on it. So DreadLore.com is where you want to go. It has a link to if you wanted to buy the hardback, if you want to, which is this thing you can barely see because of my dumb mic, or if you wanted to get the free digital version. There's also a getting started guide. The core book is about 500 pages. It is a hoss. It's a tome. That was the point. It's got everything you need to play the game. It's got everything you need to play the game in multiple settings. That said, it has its own setting as well, which is why the book is so thick. It's why it's such a large book. It goes into a lot of lore. As you will see, it's written in a way that, kind of like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it's written in a way that's supposed to be fun to read. It's also got a lot of really good art and that stuff. So that's the 500-page tome, right? Which is what we're going to go through. If you just want the meat, just the rules, and you want to get into the game, the Getting Started Guide, which is also free, is available digitally. There's no art in that. It's about start to finish, I think it's 50 pages, and that's with everything. Probably about 25 to 30-ish pages of content. And it's a short list of what's in the book. On the DreadLore website, you can get a character sheet. You can get, although it's not editable, because I hate Adobe Acrobat. At any rate, it will eventually be editable. And you can get adventure modules, settings, that kind of stuff. So check all that out if you want. There's also a link to the Discord if you actually want to be in a part of the community and all that we do. And I suggest you do. Okay. That's all I'm going to say about all that stuff. We're going to jump into the book a little bit. Hey, that's really annoying how it does that. Does that actually flash? Yeah, that sucks. Look at that paper. So the DreadLore Corebook Deluxe Edition. I was toying around at the time of where I was thinking maybe about doing a player's guide and an arbiter's guide. Arbiter is what we call the game master in DreadLore. But I'm a little bit reticent to doing any of that. I'm really not trying to go Wizards of the Coast on this, uh, unless it's needed. As in, like, unless there needs to be another core book or another book of some sort. I don't really want to have that kind of pay structure. What I will eventually put out is modules, and which there are a couple already out, and then I'll put out splat books. So for the settings, the various settings and such, there is a free splat right now. It's on Google Drive. You can get the link on the DreadLore website. It's called Into Space. Think of Starship Troopers, aliens, and you're going to be in the right ballpark. All right, DreadLore is a tabletop role-playing game for dreamers by Bill and friends. And here's all the creds. A lot of people came into this to make it happen. I've gone over this before, so I'm going to kind of fast track it through. But all of these people had a lot to do with this thing. We did a Kickstarter and everything. And yeah, it's wild. The book came out fall of 2022. And now it's time to promote. You live and learn, then die and forget it all, as my father used to say. So here's the sexy table of contents. And, it's a table of contents. So you got the prologue, introducing DreadLore, tons about the world, races. So this game, it is a setting agnostic game system, meaning you can apply it to whatever setting you want. You could play Star Trek, you could play Star Wars, Call of Cthulhu, vampire, high fantasy, etc. But I wanted to write the core book within a setting. So the core book deluxe edition has the setting of Craster, which you could say is high fantasy. Imagine if Saruman won. What would the world look like? And that's a fairly easy way of putting it. So there are completely different races, fantastic races, in this setting of DreadLore. Yeah, and we can eventually get to that. Look at that artwork. So here's the prologue, a land soaked in tears. I'm not entirely certain that I read this the last time. Wouldn't surprise me if I did. Also wouldn't surprise me if I didn't, because I don't know why. But we're going to read it. We're going to read it to you. I'm just going to do the book from start to finish. Yeah, so here we go. And I'm going to comment in between because I'm that way. Prologue, a land soaked with tears. Some wonder if Craster is a dying world. For Doina, like me, who've traveled to all its corners, we no longer question it. Our god is dying, as is the nature of these things. As Craster falls, something must surely take his place, something far more sinister. In this age, known to many as the age of a dying world, the very fabric of the veil protecting the natural is frayed and weakening. Creatures once thought to exist just in stories that mothers would tell young Dinna or Doina, children can be found lurking among us. I've seen enough in my 27 seasons to know that there is a truth in all stories. To escape the slowing, many Zens of Craster have fled the wilds and found refuge in the cities. It's unnatural. Dinna were meant to wander, to seek adventure and glory. And in the age of a dying world, glory is to be had for those brave enough to seek it. Death, that old friend, she waits around every corner. A thunderclap that seemed to shake the whole of Craster rumbled heavily in the night, and it was followed up immediately by a streak of jagged lightning. Galadin, my horse, whickered slightly but never lost stride, keeping her eyes low, watching each step with careful precision. In a storm like this, any slight misstep could be fatal for a horse and rider. Only a madman would chance the roads on a frigid night in the Reach in the middle of a storm. Only a madman, or someone trying to avoid the watchful eyes of the Ulex. Which was I. Some have called me madman, and there is truth in their words, but this night I was simply an old hand with a place to be. I pulled my worn leather jacket closer to brace against the cold night air. Rainwater poured from the brim of my cap. It was still half a day's ride to Prime. I'd need to make camp soon, but still, I pressed on, trying to make up ground. Gallatin caught the scent of something ahead of us, just as I saw the faint light from a gas lantern through the spruce trees that lined the old dirt road. I eased my hand inside of my jacket and gripped the wheel gun in its leather holster. The Reach is one of the most dangerous places in all of Daloon. You have to be on guard against all manner of progeny and beast. As I rode closer, I could see the lantern was hanging from the side of a stagecoach. The coach was leaning awkwardly with one of its back wheel hubs entrenched in the dirt. The wheel was propped up against the rear boot. A lean figure in a dark leather coat grunted as he tried in vain to lift the coach up from out of the mud. An old bay gelding pranced anxiously in its harness as we approached. Should I do a voice? We'll see. Need a hand, stranger? I called out, trying to temper the gravel in my voice. It didn't do any good. Startled, the man spun so fast his legs caught out from under him, and he slipped down to one knee in the mud. I dismounted to help him to his feet. Who goes there? The man stammered. And when I stepped into the torchlight, I saw the fear in his eyes. I couldn't blame him. Easy, stranger. I'm just passing through, and it looks like you could use some help. My name's Valor, I said, offering my hand. The man was Denna, and he looked to be nearing 30 seasons old. When he took my hand, I pulled him to his feet. Much obliged to you. My horse got spooked, and when he jerked, the damned wheel came off. I've been stuck out here for hours. Dangerous times to be alone on the road, stranger, especially in this storm, I said, staring down at the frail man in front of me. The carriage was in fair condition, except for the missing wheel. It wasn't ornate, just a simple wooden stagecoach, the top of which was loaded down with supplies. It seemed as if the man had packed up his every possession, and in quite a hurry. I'm not alone. I've got my boy with me, the man said, gesturing to the coach. I peered around, and the light from the gaslight was just enough for me to see a boy, no more than 5 seasons old, huddled up in the corner of the stagecoach, staring solemnly into the distance. Something about the boy seemed off, and hardened by the seasons, I've come to trust my gut. Your boy seems like he's in shock. Encountered any trouble? Oh, he's fine. No trouble other than this damned wheel. Mind giving me a hand? You look like you've got a strong back, the man asked. Up close, I could see the worn lines of age that cracked his copper skin. His clothing and his rig marked him a farmer, but his eyes told a different story. They were hawkish and stern. Those eyes have seen violence. So have mine. Be glad to help, mister, I said, grabbing a hold of the wheel hub with both hands, my feet digging into the mud as I heaved and lifted the hub out of the mud. The man rolled the wheel over and shoved it into place before hitting it a few times with a large wooden mallet for good measure. Much obliged to you, the man said. I can offer you a dry place to sleep in the coach for your trouble if you're interested. There's people waiting for me in Prime, but I thank you for your hospitality. I tapped the brim of my hat respectfully and turned to Gallatin, who stamped his feet impatiently. I took one more glance inside the coach at the young boy, huddled up, scared out of his wits. "You all right, son?" I told you he's fine. Just tired is all," the man said, and I nodded. I had just put a foot into the stirrup when I heard a crossbow bolt being chambered behind me. I turned slowly to see the man holding his clockwork Sprock crossbow leveled at me. "I appreciate the help, mister." An interesting way to pay a kindness. To repay a kindness, friend," I said, raising my hands to show I was unarmed. "This doesn't need to come to violence." The old Zen laughed wickedly. "I like you. It's like you said, friend," he began. "Dangerous times to be alone on the road, especially in this storm." From behind the man came 3 others from out of the woodline with steel blades bared. Bandits. Piss on my generous spirit. One of the figures coming out of the woods was Azunth's. His large reptilian hands held razor-sharp fire steel that glistened in the gaslight. The snake folk would have to go first. Violence is never my first choice, especially when there's no jink involved. But I'd already wasted time, and Kira would have my head if I was late again. I grabbed my hat by the brim and slowly removed it from my head, resting it upon the pommel of Gallatin's saddle. This was the exact moment when the bandits knew they were dead men. Even in the darkness, they could see the pure, arcane energy rippling across my eyes. "That's where you're wrong, stranger. I'm also not alone in this storm. I am the storm." The relic of focus that hung around my neck felt slightly warm against my chest as the first bolt of lightning arced through the sky and landed with an ear-splitting crash right where the Zunths had once stood. The electricity in the air caused the hairs on my body to stand up. I staggered back momentarily from the exertion. The old Zen, seeing one of his comrades turn to ash, dropped the crossbow and fled. I drew my wheel gun as the other 2 Zens closed the distance between us. Theurgic energy pulsed into the gun, and raw, violet energy left the barrel. I placed 3 shots in the first Zen's chest with a marksman precision, and he dropped on the spot. His steel blade fell from his limp fingers. The other Denna never broke stride, despite seeing his partner cut down beside him. I fired another shot, and the emerald chaos gem that hung around my neck cracked from exertion as it protected me from the chaos in the magicka that roared around me. The next blast of energy flew harmlessly into the night. I was now within range of my attacker, who raised his steel, poised to strike. My next shot hit him in his side, but he shrugged it off and swung his blade wildly. I rolled under the strike and came up firing. Theurgic energy pulsed from my pistol and hit him right between his eyes. The blast blew the Denna off his feet, and he fell back into the mud, eyes open and a look of shock on his face. One more for the well. Perhaps she will be sated this night. Unlikely. Off in the distance, I could see the old hand running away, not yet out of my eyesight. He was too dangerous to be left alive. I said a silent prayer, not for his soul, but for mine, before pulling the flame from the gas-like lantern. The orange flame danced in the midair in front of me for a moment. I focused on that flame until sweat broke out on my brow, sweat that was soon washed away with the rain. At once the flame was gone. The screaming began. Off in the distance, the old man fell to the ground as he struggled in vain to put out the fire that now engulfed his body. I didn't have time to wait for him to stop struggling before the chaos had caused the coach with the boy inside to also catch fire. Despite the rain, the flame was growing quickly and engulfing the wood. The boy made no sound. I threw open the door, and the boy sat huddled in the corner. I offered him my hand, but he didn't take it. In fact, he didn't even look up at me. Up this close, I could see the blood spattered on his clothes. In a few seconds, the coach would be burned to the ground, so I had no time to waste. I reached in and grabbed the boy around the collar and pulled him out of the door. The kid landed in the wet, and he scrambled up out of my grasp and away from me. But he tripped on the body of one of the fallen men. The boy looked up at me, fear painted across his face. "It's okay, son. Those men are gone. They can't hurt you now," I said. He looked up at me. His green eyes pierced through the orange strands of wet hair that fell down his face. "They killed my mom and dad," he said simply. "I know, son. I'm sorry." "You killed them?" I nodded. "I would have killed them, but I didn't know how," the boy said. "What's your name, son?" The boy hesitated for a moment, as he wasn't sure if he could tell me his name. He has good instincts, because in Craster, names have power. "Eben. My name's Eben," he said finally. "Way I see it, Eben, is that you got two options. You can stay out here by yourself and wait for the next caravan to come through at first light, or perhaps a squad of Uleks, either of which might take you to safety, or you can come with me. I can't promise you safety, but can promise you a chance at glory." "Can you show me how to do what you did?" Eben asked. I nodded. "Where I'm going, there are many things that need killing, yes. Many things that are in our realm that shouldn't be, and it's my responsibility to send them back. If you've got the knack for it, I'll set you on your journey. It's been several years since I've taken on an apprentice. It's possible that Avakan put you in my path for a reason, and perhaps this is the start of your story, not the end." Eben took my hand and I pulled him to his feet. All of his belongings were now smoldering to ash, but I helped him saddle his family's horse. We continued through the night on our journey toward Prime, where Kira and Alavar awaited my arrival. I couldn't tell you what made me decide to bring the boy with me instead of leaving him behind, other than a feeling. By the gods, the boy would have been safer anywhere than with me. But I sensed that he was to be part of the next chapter of my story, or I a part of the next chapter of his. You see, everyone has a part to play in the story of Craster, and in the age of a dying world. What Craster needs now is heroes. Look at that stagecoach. This artwork is done by Tim Roberts, who is a patron on the Patreon. DJ No Fly was shaking, man. "Don't trust him, the farmer's up to no good." You're right. So that prologue was written by Logan Nance. Logan Nance is a published author in his own right. He's got a book out right now called Saturday Shepherd and the World Beyond. You should check it out on Amazon. You can get a digital copy. You can also get I don't know if there's a hardback. There's definitely a paperback. I think there is a hardback, actually. Actually, I think I have a hardback. Maybe it is only the hardback. Anyway, it's a really nice book. Good read. Werewolves, vampires. Think Dresden Files, but like in that vein of thing. It's a solid story, coming of age YA novel, and it's a series. There's also an audiobook, which you might, if you get that audiobook, you might recognize the person doing the voiceover. Doing art, working on the book cover for hopefully future guests of the GGP. Yeah, speaking of the GGP, let me actually throw down a little bit. Hey, so when we say GGP, we're talking about the Geeky Gamer podcast, which is Thursdays, presently at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard, It says that it's on Instagram. It's not. It's on YouTube and Facebook. That said, you can catch DreadLore on Instagram, DreadLore System. Doom, doom, doom. That's right. So that's the GGP, the Geeky Gamer Podcast. We've had about 6 episodes. We'll have a few more. When I say a few, we do it every week. So it's going to be lots and lots more. Doop, doop, doop. Right. So what else we're going to do here? Prologue is pretty good. This artwork here is by Billiam Buncombe, which is me. I'm going to do this first page. Well, I do something else. I'll do the first page and a half. I want to keep these kind of tight, maybe like an hour-ish, and then try to be doing these every day until I'm through with this book. Listening to some author on YouTube, super short episodes. What's the author? DJ No Fly. All right. Introducing DreadLore, the age of a dying world. The world is Craster. The world is old, but not yet finished. Decadence encapsulates the once great kingdoms and empires. Lines of war are drawn as the chaos of Magica and science of Theurgy contend for a victor. Mortals, such as yourselves, search the stars and chance great deeds in the hope for escape and immortality. In this age of a dying world, travel is fraught with dangers of all sorts. Whether it be impromptu militia, raiders lying in wait on the roadside, corrupted beasts, or daemons drawn from some forgotten realm, the wayward traveler and would-be hero best be vigilant. As hope perishes, so too the stars are winking out and the sky grows darker and dimmer with each passing season. The lands and Zens can somehow feel that the end of all things draws near. The end will not come in a day, a few months, or within many seasons, hundreds of years. Perhaps it will end long after we are gone. But the end ebbs closer. All things can feel its grim approach. Such is the world of Craster in the age of a dying world. The overwhelming gray morality of the Veil casts a weird hue upon all creation. It is said that the godlike beings known as greater and lesser powers achieved their status by writing their great deeds amongst the stars, that through their sheer willpower they were able to achieve greatness that manifested as stars reborn into their very own constellations. Through these acts, the powers achieved a kind of immortality, an escape from the doldrums of Craster. The players seek this goal. Players will often find themselves in difficult, sometimes hopeless situations. It is up to the players to make purposeful decisions, to rise above and fight against those wretched miasma of the world's dying consciousness. Conscience. Whether they choose a path of selfishness or selflessness, players must become aberrant to achieve greatness and write their names and heroic deeds amongst the stars. Many will try, few will succeed. So, I want to give some credit where credit's due. The entire book was written by me. However, that sounded very conceited. It was written by me entirely. However, when I started this book, it was with another person, Ben Riggs. And this intro has a good amount of influence and also some wording from Ben. It has been changed greatly, but I want to give him a shout out. He helped in the very early stages of DreadLore. He and I started it together, and we didn't end it together, but we started it together, and he was a big part of it at that time. What is DreadLore? DreadLore is a tabletop role-playing game that focuses on immersive role-playing. It has its own unique fantasy punk setting with which we flavor everything in this book. That said, the DreadLore rule system can be, and has been, used to run several sorts of settings: cyberpunk, steampunk, high fantasy, dark fantasy, noir, horror, etc. You might note that in the PDF, you got links, baby. What? I'll take you anywhere in this book. What is fantasy punk? It is a setting-specific idea. DreadLore system can be used for most any setting. The world of Craster, explained below, is fantasy punk. Fantasy refers to the idea of being not ordinary. Think of magic, weird science, otherworldly terrain, races, etc. Punk refers to the world being deadly. Craster is grim, dark, touts the horror of the unknown, and punishes those who do not respect it. If you think of something like medieval steampunk, your mind will be in the right ballpark. As for immersive role-playing, that coincides with and is explained in the expectations of anyone playing the game. Meaning we're going to get to it. What is a TTRPG? Do I need to do this? Yeah, why not? New to tabletop role-playing games, TTRPGs, no problem. TTRPGs are board games where those who play use their imaginations, along with a handful of dice, to wander through a storyline and attempt to achieve their characters' goals to the bitter end. They are a form of cooperative storytelling. One person takes on the role of the referee. We call her the arbiter. The arbiter does many things. She projects the illusion of a world and setting. She role-plays the non-player characters, NPCs, also called antagonists. And she arbitrates, get it? Any uncertainty that may arise. The arbiter has the final word on what happens in the story. The rest of the players each take on a single character within the story, often an intrepid adventurer of some sort. Good band, by the way. Intrepid Adventurers. Get it? These player characters, PCs, also referred to as the party, interact with the scenes presented by the arbiter, exploring ruins of the bygone ages, battling adversaries, solving puzzles, engaging in political intrigue, and likely sowing chaos. Much like the PCs must react to what the arbiter presents, the arbiter reacts to the choices of the PCs, narrating consequences leading into the next exciting scene. In this way, a compelling story organically unfolds between the group of friends. Doesn't that make sense? How is DreadLore different? Let me put a little caveat in here too. Caveat? Note. That definition of a TTRPG can be argued. There are other forms of TTRPGs. So this is just framing it for DreadLore. How is DreadLore different? There's no real winning or losing in DreadLore, just degrees of achievement. And there doesn't have to be a predetermined end to the story either. The game focuses on the journey of your players rather than the destination. The limelight is on the player characters. They are the story. Even if the players are playing the dregs of society, those who don't matter to the world, they are still the focus of a DreadLore game, and the action is on them. Oftentimes, a new story picks up where the old one left off. Characters change and grow through their experiences, both tragic and triumphant. Their personalities, goals, and motives may change over time due to these experiences, and they may also accumulate wealth, power, or influence as well. Reaching goals in victory or defeat allows characters to advance, get more powerful, and push the story's plot forward. Failures often lead to the most exhilarating chapters in stories, like the hero who attempts to stem the tide in a flash of heroic effort, only to fail. and their attempt is both great and remembered long after their passing. The point is to tell the story rather than only its outcome. Who is this game for? You! Dreamers, storytellers, creatives, actors, artists, game masters, philosophers. Notice, really quick, all of these things, all of these types of people, they are not spoon-fed. They are creators. This game requires a lot of energy from everyone at the table. So that's enough said. You do not just sit back and roll dice. So if you want to do that, there are games for it. This is not one of them. DreadLore is for people that use their brains and desire to explore their imaginations through the lens of a fantasy punk world or whatever world they want to do. It is a setting that is not for the faint of heart, for those who are easily offended, or for those who shy away from tough ideas, decisions, and life. We want everyone to be included. However, that does not mean everyone wants to be included. This book assumes a certain level of maturity in its player base. Expectations. DreadLore uses a different play style from modern-style TTRPGs. It is new to many people and takes some time to get used to. We call it immersive narration, and understanding it will get people in the right headspace for playing and running a game using this system. Basically, your characters are the story. It's their story. They have both the limelight and the action. Think about being in your character's shoes, like the first person or point of view perspective, rather than a third person or over the shoulder perspective. We care what and how you do what you do, not really why. If part of your action is to literally tell others why you're doing something, then by all means do it. Otherwise, keep the game focused on the fiction and the action. Normally, when I tell people about DreadLore, I say this in a different way. I say, I don't give a shit why you're doing it. There are mechanics for gaining some degree of narrative control. You gain a modicum of narrative control when you bid a character trait. Your intention becomes reality. When you spend breath and forego all rolls, or when you spend cunning and go before your opponents. They normally go first. Characters are mortal. They are not epic. Demigods. Even at tier 4 and with incandescent souls, although that gets pretty close. The world of Craster is absolutely deadly and will murder characters if they are not prepared and willing to think creatively. There are times to run away and regroup, or just run away. Despite this, characters are striving for greatness, to figuratively and sometimes literally write their names in the stars and gain a kind of immortality. This is the epic struggle of the game. The world is dying a slow death, and the characters are looking for escape through achieving greatness that will be remembered. Now again, this book is assuming you're using the setting of Craster. So the way it's explaining it is from that perspective. The reason I did that is so that, ironically, I could be brief. Then I could explain a whole lot and always talk about the same thing, rather than only talking in generalities. The system, I should say, can be adapted to loads of different settings. Settings that are not particularly deadly, for example. For example, the Red Writ. We do that on Mondays. The Red Writ and actually Into Space. This is called DreadLore Theater of the Mind on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard on Twitch. Yeah, that's when we do this. You got the Red Writ. It's one of our games. Detroit, 1982. Think of Call of Cthulhu. So it's an entirely different setting. When we have our off nights, when a cast member can't join, we do Into Space, which is kind of like Starship Troopers or Aliens. A totally different setting. And that's on, Into Space is on Twitch as well. If you want to catch those old episodes, you can go on Spotify for the podcast version and go to our YouTube channel. We have all the video and stuff there as well. At any rate, all that to say, the setting can dictate a lot, but this book is assuming you're using Craster. Headspace. Regardless of the setting of your game, this system attempts to allow everyone engaged in the game, whether they're running the game or playing it, the ability to have a ton of agency. The Arbiter has most of the authority in the game. It's basically a monarchy. That may sound contradictory, but it's not so. The Arbiter has the final say in most situations, so that they are free to be impartial, to arbitrate, without being antagonistic with regard to the story or to the rule set. The players, on the other hand, have paramount agency when deciding what sort of character they're playing. For example, choosing their character traits and bidding them. Everyone can thus have the same expectations. A DreadLore game is about the fiction. It is about players immersing themselves in their characters, being involved in the story arc, and in helping create and move the fiction that follows. This is the headspace that the system attempts to achieve. Lose the rest and get involved. If you find yourself in that headspace, you're doing it right. Assize wisdom. Assize wisdom are side notes written in Cedric's voice that he want to pass along to you. These side notes are provided in addition to examples and the Arbiter's Dark because they pertain to how the crunch of rules mechanics actually manifests and is understood by the people of Craster. Cedric also offers his various opinions and about the subject at hand. It's funny, side note, I pored over this book looking for typos, and there's so many typos. They're not awful. It's just funny. Like, talk to any author, you will always have some kind of typo, especially when it's 150,000 words. Arbiter's Dark. The Arbiter's Dark are side notes containing bits of information and explanations about the world and rules that are mostly towards the Arbiter. Directed towards the Arbiter. They're written from Bill's perspective, with his voice, this voice, and are out of game. So anytime you read an Arbiter's Dark, just imagine my punk ass. Loyalty's hard to come by. Josie and I became acquainted. Oh, this is Cedric's notebook. Cedric, his voice. So he's supposed to have, he kind of talks in a brogue, kind of like a bad Cockney. Shall I do the Cockney? Oh, it might be just annoying. Let's see. Hello, Governor. All right. Loyalty's hard to come by. Loyalty's hard to come by. Josie and I became acquainted by means of being in a tight spot, and my sharing a sliver of steak. Sometimes that's all it takes to find your kind of Burke in this world. It's probably not at all Cockney, but it's my attempt. Formatting. Pronouns are handled thusly. Barring specific examples, the Arbiter is a she. An NPC or antagonist is a he. A player is a they, and when in doubt, we use they. We often refer to you, a player, a Burke, a fob, and any number of silly terms. We're referring to the universal you, who might find themselves in a particular situation. Why? It's fun. Bold text is not only for emphasis, but also indicates the first time you see the term in the book, in a way that is going to explain what the term means. Words in small caps indicate traits or flaws. Red-lettered underlined titles are to designate the names of abilities. Words in square brackets refer to game mechanics that are dependent on other mechanics, or they're used by players. For example, proficiencies are game mechanics, but aren't used by players. Instead, players use mulligans, which are types of proficiencies. Character traits are resources which players bid to activate abilities and to perform meaningful actions. All this makes sense later. I'll also note the explanation of that was done by Bad. Bad meaning the person who originally helped me with DreadLore. The co-creator of DreadLore. Traits are noted throughout the book in two ways, small caps and also within square brackets. Traits that are listed in small caps appear in descriptions and should be added to your sheet after you've gained that ability, ninja gear, etc. Traits listed in square brackets are there as a quick reference so you can easily know if and how many traits are granted. In the example below, authoritarian presence within the Codex of Mastery grants 2 traits, authority and rethink, but not 4. This will make a lot more sense when you're looking at it, so if you're just listening to it, it ain't going to make that much sense. Example formatting for abilities. Authoritarian presence. Authority, rethink. Great commanders realize that their physical presence can be used as a formidable tool. Use your authority to bolster your presence and cause comrades and foes alike to rethink their course of action. While an antagonist may not change their mind entirely, they will certainly take notice of you. And then it has a little deal. Let's say there's a rule which says you get a cheese sandwich on a 4+. In other words, a 4 up. And you happen to be rolling a d8. If your die rolls any of the following numbers, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8, then you get the sandwich. If you roll a 1, 2, or 3, you don't get the sandwich. What the fuck? So this is talking about the formatting of dice. It actually might be a typo. Oh well. Example formatting for dice. 4 plus, 8 plus, 10 plus. Refer to 4 up, 8 up, and 10 up, respectively. Again, this makes more sense not reading aloud, but when you're actually reading it in the book. So it's saying the way that you read a 4+ in the book is 4 up. The way you read 8+ is 8 up. So 4 up, 8 up, 10 up. That's what they mean. These terms apply to the results you get when you're rolling your dice, specifically to when you're trying to gain successes. The terms mean that if you roll that number or anything above it, then something happens. For those who like to feel mathy, the numbers are inclusive and so could also be written like so. However, we're not going to inflict that formatting upon anyone. Examples. This book's replete with examples which hopefully aid you in understanding how the rules and narrative style work as one. Examples highlight specific rules, showing how they might work in different encounters, and tend to be more straightforward, mechanical in nature than other sections. They're written so as to introduce and follow the misadventures of a group of custom DreadLore characters with whom you'll soon be acquainted. The voice. While mechanics-heavy sections of the book are written with Bill's voice, much of it's written from the perspective of a curious vagabond known as Cy Cedric Kidder. Cy is an honorific. Some of what Cy Kidder has to say isn't entirely accurate, as you may find out. While many of his exploits weren't done in the most legal of manners, his unique perspectives on the world of Craster can be very useful for the canny Zen, that is, a denizen of Craster. Portions of the book were acquired by Cy Kidder, for example, the Diary of a Grimbar within Traditions of Mysticism, and are presented in their former owners' voices. Lexicon. Cedric uses a slew of words and terminologies native to Craster. You should be able to understand most references through context. Also, this is how Zens of Craster speak. Try and use these terms in your own games to elicit the feel of the world. A complete list of them is in Appendix, Languages, and Lexicon. README. How many people read the README? Who reads the README? Ken, that should be our spoof on Who Watches the Watchmen. Whether you are a seasoned gamer, a newcomer, or somewhere in between, it is best to start learning. I can read. It is best to start learning this game with an open mind. Open your mind. That is free of assumptions. If you have not already read the entirety of Introducing DreadLore, it walks you through the basics of the gaming. It walks you through the basics of gaming. In this Read Me section, we're going to recap on some of what has previously been said in the effort to give you an exhaustive list of what you can expect from this game and a play-by-play of how it functions. We will cover learning all the typos. Yeah, no doubt, dude. You know, as a side note, I had like 10 different people proofread this thing. No, and we found tons of stuff. We didn't find them all. What we will cover. What you specifically need to play the game. Roles and responsibilities for the players and the arbiter. Instructions for setting up a game session and playing. Instructions for taking your turn. Guide you through examples of what a DreadLore game should look like as you play it. In other words, the mindset that the players and arbiter should have. The rest of the book will lead you through making a character, provide you with ample DreadLore setting material. Most of the book is dedicated to this effort. Give in-depth descriptions and examples about DreadLore's various rules and playstyles. Present a descriptive list of flora, fauna, and monsters which are setting specific. Give some pointers on how to adapt DreadLore's system to other settings. For a quick list of all of the significant mechanics in the DreadLore system, drop down to the appendices and check out Appendix Rules Cheat Sheet. Side note, the Getting Started Guide has all that stuff too in a much more concise way. It doesn't have any of the lore or the explanations and that kind of stuff. It's just kind of the meat of the game. If you want to pick that up, do thedreadlore.com and you'll find everything. This is me. This is Cedric Kidder. Look at him. That costume, that garb, cosplay, whatever you want to call it, was created by Emrys Unknown, who you will see later in this book. What do you need to play this game? In order to play DreadLore, you'll need the following. One person who wants to run the game. Call the arbiter. A group of players. A typical game has 4 to 6 players, though games could be as small as 1 player and 1 arbiter, or as large as the arbiter thinks she can handle. 1 character sheet per player, either a printed copy or a pre-generated character. Something erasable to mark character sheets such as a pencil. Can AI exists now and has likely killed another job, the proofreader. A set of dice per player and a set of dice for the arbiter. If you need to share dice, that won't cause any players, lest you're superstitious. You'll need all the dice except a d20. A standard polyhedral dice set is a great option if you don't have any dice. Access to the DreadLore Corebook. This book, so you're already on your way. Time. DreadLore is a game which normally spans several game sessions, the entirety of which is called a campaign. Or if the arbiter has a one game session in mind, called a one-shot. Then your entire game could span a single evening. Game session lasts between 3 to 6 hours, assuming that you're not a big ol' roles and responsibilities. The point of a DreadLore game, and most any TTRPG for that matter, is to cooperatively tell a story. Literally the fiction. Over the course of several game sessions, in order to achieve this end, you must first understand the roles and responsibilities of the players and of the arbiter. I need to make Moxie to play. You need Moxie to play DreadLore. Truth. What do players do? Each player builds their own character using character creation steps, Chapter 3. And they act, for example, role-play those characters during gameplay. The why of what players are doing is determined by the goals they created for their characters, which are cleared with the arbiter beforehand. So, players are role-playing their characters in accordance with their goals, which follows the arbiter's story. Achieving one's goals allows them to advance, for example, gain power, more resources, and expand what their characters capable of doing. What does the arbiter do? The arbiter runs the game. She writes a story arc, sets the mood for the fiction's setting, role plays every character other than the player characters, and dictates when scenes and encounters begin and end. She also has the final decision on any element of the game. The arbiter is playing the game too, trying to join in with the players to fashion a compelling story. The game plays out as a conversation between everyone at the table, bringing it all together. Players describe to the group and arbiter what and how their characters are doing, how they're responding to the fictional world around them. Wow. Winning could be defined as successfully telling a compelling story, which includes all of the players' characters, honors the arbiter's story arc and the mood of the setting, and above all, was fun to do so. See, this is what happens when I try to be brief. It all gets a little technical. Everyone's involved in telling the story, all of the players as well as the arbiter. It's up to the arbiter to set up the world and maintain the setting. She describes the overall story arcs and scenes, and she referees and arbitrates any questions or disagreements which might arise. DJ No Fly says there is no winning. There is no winning. The setup. Instructions. All players must have a finisher character sheet. All players must have a finisher character and a mostly filled out character sheet before gameplay can begin. Character sheets can be added to and completed as the game ensues. The first game session often takes the form of a session 0, where all the players sit down together with the arbiter and create characters. This can also be done away from the table, one-on-one between the player and arbiter, or at any point between the first game session. Regardless, the following should occur. The arbiter outlines the expectations for her game, the general attitude and feel she wants at the table, where in-game the characters will start, and be able to explore how many game sessions there will be, when and where it'll take place, and so forth. The arbiter describes the prologue of her story, so her players can get ideas for the kinds of characters they might want to play. This description can be a kind of narration, like the opening crawl for a movie, or it can be a short scene or two, wherein she introduces the world at hand, the player characters, and any pertinent antagonists. Players create their characters and discuss their choices with the arbiter and one another, as well as their characters' goals. Characters might have secrets from, or be at odds with one another. It is up to the arbiter and those players if these facets of their characters are known out of game. Side note. Be careful with this. Some players do not like out-of-game secrets. I will leave it at that. Sometimes the arbiter will have to... I can speak the English. Sometimes the arbiter will have the players simply listen to their narration. Other times they will play through this prologue. In the case of the latter, the arbiter must announce if it is the montage or the dread, both of which are discussed below. The setup for your first game session differs from those thereafter. Whew! All right. I think that is where we're going to end this one, on page 26. We've done about 70 minutes, which really was about 50 minutes, because the first 20 was me bitching hard about technology. So we're at page 26. This is where we're going to start the next time. It's the setup for your first game session differs from those thereafter. I need to make that a thing. All right. DJ No Fly, thank you for jumping in, sir. And hanging out. We had a few people watching. If you enjoy what we're doing, you know what I'm going to say, YouTube. I don't really need to say it. so I'm not gonna. However, do so if you enjoy what we're doing. This channel is about DreadLore and all the different projects we've got going on. We have a whole cast of people that are doing Theater of the Mind, which you can catch us on Monday, this Monday, and every Monday, 7 p.m. on Twitch. You can also see the previous episodes on this channel on YouTube. You can catch the podcast version everywhere you can think of to have podcast. Huge shout out to those cast members. You can find all their names in the description, the guest stars and all that stuff. Oh, fine. If you twist my arm, I suppose I'll tell you who they are. Mr. Ken Howell is cast member. Drizzle, Daniel Holker, and Andrea Elliott Johnson. These are the mainstay cast members of the Red Writ in Theater of the Mind. We have guest stars in Into Space, and it just depends on the time that we do that. Jazzy Cabbages is one. Maxie is one as well. Aight. Hey, we also do the GGP, Geeky Gamer Podcast. This is on Thursdays, 7 p.m. on YouTube. It is spectacular, very, very interesting, more of a traditional kind of podcast, if you want to check that out. Most of the art, the music, the production is done by Couchfire Media. They are not doing it right now, so that's why the media production is pretty basic on this read-through, because I'm doing it. But if you check out any of our other stuff, you're going to be wowed by the craftsmanship and creativity that is all Couchfire Media. And you can check them out, www.couchfiremedia.com. They are available for hire. We're going to play some intro and outro music on these things. Almost entirely it is, I'm pulling it up, all lowercase letters. Sometimes you'll hear some intrepid adventurers. Check them out on Spotify, YouTube, Bandcamp, Instagram, all that stuff. Very good stuff. DJ NoFly also will provide some music, and he has his own channel. If you want to jump on that, sometimes he goes live and mixes. You say I've got some dissolves and shit. You enjoy my OBS skills. This is all I got, dude. This is it. Yeah. Right. So that's it. Oh, the Patreon. There's a Patreon. I don't have a slide for it. The slide I have is for a different thing. But it is patreon.com/DreadLore. That is DreadLore, L-O-R-E. People of the Patreon, thank you so much. That's Nostalgic. That's Tim Roberts. That's Daniel Holker. If you want to jump on that, that money goes to us being able to afford putting on the podcast, eventually gaining better equipment, eventually actually paying the cast. So any help goes a long way. We've got some pretty interesting tiers in that pot, or in the Patreon. If you want to jump on it, it'd be very cool, and we would appreciate it. Soon we will have a coffee if you just want to do like little tips during live streams. It's not for me. It's for. It would be very awesome to be able to pay the cast and to pay Couchfire Media. So any help you can do would be appreciated. Okay, that's what we got going on. If you like this content, tell us in the comments. It really does help when you're on the chat and you say something just like a hello. It allows the cast and the hosts to realize, oh, there's actually people listening to it, and this is worthwhile. You know, it's not just a creative endeavor. It's also, because there's a lot of time that goes into it. So it really does help if you drop a comment, if you share it with people and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, we do actually have swag. We have DreadLore swag. If you go to dreadlore.com, you can find it. but we will soon have some Geeky Gamer podcast swag, won't we, DJ No Fly, and some other things. So if you want a t-shirt or any of that kind of stuff. I mean, the logo's badass. Check out this logo. Look at this fucking logo. This fucking sexy ass logo. Like, it really is cool. And Couchfire Media created that in like, it was like 30 minutes or something. Yeah, all of the artwork is just ridiculous, and yeah, it's gonna be available on the Patreon, on the fucking swag, deedly doop derp derp. All right, I'm gonna get off here. Thank you guys for jumping on. If you did not get on here live, do so next time, and we'll post on the Discord. We'll post, if you do the bell thing, you'll get a notification. If there's something you want to see different, let me know. Otherwise, I'll continue doing what I'm doing. You're about to listen to some all lowercase letters. Get ready for it. Peace out, guys.
What to do on a freight train or everyday fight. Make a midnight kiss with fantasy to hide. Take a twist on every day, an emotional fright. No space, plan flight. We're leaving Earth tonight. If they won't let you ride, but can't let go, as high as you are, pretending more. Said I gotta send, live to make a living. The computer knows you. The computer knows you lie. Everyone abused, one way or another. Understanding blind spot, or just because the other. Time to run. No one is justified. No excuse for this. Here we are. You're the star, and it's time, even though yes, but it's a crime. You're the star, and it's time, even though yes, but it's a crime. It's over.